This video is a breakdown of how life works like an RPG, and how most people unknowingly build the wrong character. If you enjoy the video, consider liking, subscribing, and joining me for the rest of the journey.
Good evening, everybody. So, today, as you can see, we will be going over how to live your life like a sandbox video game. Now, of course, we'll go over the overview, right? We'll go over the character creation, right? Designing the identity you want, escaping the tutorial zone, the open world revelation, grinding XP, skill trees, side quests, inventory management, unlocking new regions, building your base, and finally the end game philosophy. So, without further ado, let's get straight into this. So, first, number one, the character creation, right? Designing the identity you want. So, every sandbox video game begins the same way, right? You are dropped into a world with almost nothing. No legendary armor, no maxed out skills, no reputation, no empire, just pure potential, bro. And before the adventure even begins, the game asks you one of the most important questions imaginable. Who are you going to become? Right? This is the part of life most people completely skip. They inherit an identity instead of designing one, right? So when you're born, you are given an identity, you're given a name, you're given almost like the world is trying to design you and who they want you to be instead of you figuring out who you want to be, right? So they become accidental versions of themselves, right? They're shaped by parents, shaped by school, shaped by social pressure, shaped by trends, shaped by fear, and also shaped by survival, right? And none of this is your fault inherently because, right, you're just born into it. Nobody ever told you. You're just listening to the world around you, right? Very few people ever consciously sit down and ask, what kind of human being am I intentionally building, right? You're just going on autopilot. There's no manual thinking of, okay, who do I want to be, right? But sandbox players understand something more most people never realize. The identity is customizable. Your current self is not your final self, right? That changes everything because most people treat personality like concrete, right? Like it's set in stone. But sandbox thinkers treat it like clay. They understand that confidence can be trained, intelligence can expand, discipline can be built, social skills can improve, and resiliency can be forged, and creativity can grow, right? And this is why viewing life through the lens of a sandbox video game becomes so powerful psychologically. Because weakness stops identity, it becomes a low stat, and low stats can be upgraded, right? It's like in any video game, right? Any low stat you have can be upgraded, right? You just got to keep constantly going on adventures to upgrade that stat, right? A socially anxious person says, I'm awkward. But the sandbox player, right? This person who lives in the sandbox realm, they say my communication skill tree needs development. Bro, it's like you have to shift your way of thinking, right? Because this is just a skill, right? You ever hear people say skill issue? This is what it is. It's just a skill that can be trained and honed and upgraded, right? One mindset creates shame. The other mindset creates strategy. And this is why the most dangerous thing you can do in life is permanently identify with your current limitations, right? Because the human brain adapts to repeated behavior faster than people realize. The person who goes to the gym consistently becomes stronger. The person who speaks daily becomes more articulate. The person who studies deeply becomes more sharp. The person who repeatedly faces discomfort becomes fearless. Your life is constantly responding to your inputs, whether consciously or unconsciously. You are always building a character, right? So, all that in a nutshell to say, when you go out living this life, everything that you do has a consequence, right? Even the little stuff, right? You get up, you don't make your bed, you don't brush, like just the little stuff in life that sometimes you skip. Unconsciously, you're building that character. right? So when an opportunity is presented to you and you don't want to take upon it, you're basically telling yourself that, hey, I'm the type of person that doesn't want to take up on opportunities, right? Subconsciously, you're saying that to yourself, and you have to change that mindset. So the question is, are you building intentionally? Because every habit becomes coding, every routine becomes programming, every repeated thought becomes architecture, right? Most people wake up every day and reinforce the same exact version of themselves, right? Same thoughts, same routines, same emotional reaction, same environment. And then they wonder why nothing changes. But in sandbox video games, right? In sandbox RPGs, players understand a fundamental truth. If you want a different outcome, you need a different build. Now, that may require a couple things, right? So, it may require changing your environment, changing your habits, changing your friend group, changing your routines, changing your standards, and changing what you tolerate, right? Transformation begins when you stop asking, who am I? And start asking, who am I building? Because your future self is not discovered, your future self is constructed, right? All these things that need to be changed can be hard because it might be stuff that you grew up with or whatever the case may be. But, all of it can be changed easily. It can all easily be changed, right? You just have to take slow, methodical, and deliberate steps into changing it, right? So we go into escaping the tutorial zone, right? Breaking free from default living. Every game begins with a tutorial. The tutorial teaches you basic movement, simple mechanics, survival fundamentals, and beginner systems. But eventually the tutorial ends and the real game begins. Now, the problem is that many people never physiologically leave the tutorial zone, right? I'm sorry, psychologically leave the tutorial zone, right? They spend their entire lives operating on default programming, right? Wake up, go to work, consume entertainment, repeat. No exploration, no experimentation, no self discovery, and no conscious evolution. They live exactly how they were told to live, right? They live in a way that people were telling them to live their entire lives without seeking anything outside or within themselves, right? The biggest, this is one of the biggest philosophical traps in modern society. People confuse familiarity with truth, right? Just because something is normal doesn't mean it's meaningful. Sandbox players eventually realize something shocking, right? Most of society is simply following preloaded scripts. Study this, wear this, think this, buy this, pursue this, and fear this, right? You see it all the time on social media. A lot of people, you'll see one trend get super big and a lot of people start following it, right? One style gets super big and a lot of people start following it, right? Something crazy happens and a lot of people start talking about it. Nobody lives their own life. Nobody can think outside of everything they see within a day to day. They don't question what they see. They don't question, okay, why am I wearing this? Why am I thinking this, right? Why do I fear this? Why do I want to pursue this, right? Nobody's actually looking within and trying to figure out who they truly are and why they think the way they think, right? And if you never question those scripts, your life slowly becomes automated. You stop thinking deeply, you stop exploring possibilities, you stop imagining alternate futures. You become a spectator inside your own existence. And the moment you begin thinking independently, your life changes dramatically. You start asking, why do I believe why do I believe what I believe? Why am I pursuing these goals? Did I choose this path consciously? What do I actually want? And what kind of life would feel meaningful to me? These questions are inherently dangerous because once someone begins to genuinely question reality, they become difficult to control. This is why awakening often feels uncomfortable, right? The tutorial zone feels safe because it removes responsibility. If society scripts your entire life, then you never have to confront the terrifying freedom of choosing your own direction. But sandbox living requires responsibility, right? Freedom and responsibility are inseparable. The moment you realize nobody is coming to design your life for you, everything changes, right? You start thinking outside the box of different ways to do things, right? Different ways to live, different ways to make money, different ways to move. It's a it's a daunting task. And then we move on into the open world revelation, right? Realizing that there is no script. Because one of the most liberating and terrifying realizations in life is understanding this. There is no universal storyline. There is no guaranteed path, no correct mission, right? No single correct mission. And there is no magical roadmap. Life is an open world, right? Everything that you were fed is all made up. It's not made up, but it was made up in a way for you to move in a way in society, right? Without being noticed, right? But and it's okay if that's how you want to live. But I know a majority of people don't want to live that way, right? They want to be exceptional, right? So I'm saying life is an open world. Most people secretly want life to be linear because linearity feels safe, right? They want certainty, clear instructions, guaranteed outcomes, and predictable futures. But sandbox games thrive on uncertainty, and so does real life. Now, the problem is that many people interpret uncertainty as danger instead of possibility. They become paralyzed trying to find the perfect path, but in reality, there is no perfect path. It's just a path that works great for you, right? Sandbox players understand something deeper. Meaning is created through movement. You do not discover purpose sitting still forever. You encounter purpose while exploring. This is why some of the happiest people are often the most curious people, right? Because curiosity transforms life into adventure. And suddenly, learning becomes exploration, travel becomes discovery, conversations becomes hidden lore, books become map expansions, and failure becomes experimentations, right? It's all about perception, how you perceive things in this world, right? You're upping your XP in this life. Life starts to regain its mystery. Modern society destroys wonder because it reduces existence into productivity metrics. Everything becomes optimization, efficiency, status, comparison, and survival. But sandbox living restores play, right? You're getting into that childlike wonder again, right? But that to say that this play is not childish. Play is one of the highest forms of intelligence because play creates experimentation and experimentation creates discovery. And in turn, discovery creates growth. It creates growth. So the people who build extraordinary lives are usually the ones willing to wander beyond the conventional paths because they try the strange ideas, they pursue unusual interests, and they take risks others avoid. And through exploration, they uncover worlds invisible to people trapped in routine, right? The greatest tragedy is not failure. The greatest tragedy is never exploring the map at all, right? You got to get out there and explore the world because the world has a lot of things that I don't know, you don't know, but through exploration, we can figure out these things that is hiding, right? Grinding XP, number 4, the hidden power of repetition. Every great sandbox player understands one brutal truth. Progress is usually boring before it becomes extraordinary. People love the fantasy of transformation, but very few people love the process required to achieve it. In games, players accept grinding naturally. They understand that levels take time, upgrades require repetition, mastery requires consistency. But in real life, people expect immediate results. And I believe that this is partly due to the fact, or mainly due to the fact of social media, right? It gives you that quick dopamine, right? You see somebody that shows them broke They don't have everything together, and then they show you like a quickened version of where they got to, right? They don't show you the slow grind it took to get there, right? That's why I'm saying people expect immediate results. And that expectation destroys countless futures because reality operates through compounding, right? It's the compound effect. The gym feels useless until years pass. Reading feels slow until your thinking surpasses everyone around you. Practice feels awkward until mastery appears effortless, right? Even me, when I started this channel, I felt a little bit nervous at first because I'm like, okay, all right, hopefully I don't stutter, hopefully I don't do this or do that. But the truth is that we're all gonna make mistakes, right? But as long as you keep compounding and doing the things over and over again, then it's okay, right? As long as you're putting in the effort, as long as you're putting in 1% more than you did the day prior, everything will be okay, right? Most people quit during the invisible phase, the phase where progress is occurring internally but not visibly. This is why discipline is so rare, right? Human beings are emotional creatures. We want immediate proof that effort matters. But sandbox players trust the XP system. You have to trust the XP system because they understand that repetition deposits invisible experience into their character, right? Every workout, every study session, every difficult conversation, every uncomfortable challenge, right? Nothing is wasted. This principle applies to psychology too. Confidence is practice, focus is practice, resilience is practice, and courage is practiced. Every anxiety is practiced. Humans become what they repeatedly do. This means your daily routines are not small things. They are identity construction systems. Your future is hiding inside your repeated behaviors, right? So people dramatically underestimate how powerful consistency becomes over long periods of time. Tiny actions repeated over years can completely transform a human being. And this is why elite performers often seem superhuman. It's not because they were born different, it's because they stacked repetitions longer than everyone else did, right? You just got to grind, 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 grind. And I'm not the one to say hustle culture is everything, but you have to look at it from a different perspective, right? Instead of thinking of it as hustle culture and grind and all this, thinking of it as just farming XP. You're just farming XP through life, right? Just think of it as a game because all it is, bro. It's all a game. And you have skill trees, right? Number 5, skill trees. Specializing without limiting yourself, right? Most people accidentally lock themselves into one identity. They decide, I'm not athletic, I'm not creative, I'm not a leader, I'm not intelligent, right? And in doing so, they stop exploring entire regions of their human potential, right? Our potential is limitless, right? We were born to be human. We were born to have no limits, right? Potential is as far as the sky can see or as far as you can see. But sandbox players experiment with builds consistently. They understand that human beings are multidimensional. You can become physically stronger, financially smarter. You can become emotionally calmer. You can become socially sharper, become creatively powerful, and become spiritually deeper, all simultaneously, right? Life contains countless skill trees. The problem is that modern systems encourage hyper specialization way too early. People become way too one dimensional as well. But some of the most powerful people in history became dangerous precisely because they developed multiple domains: philosophy, communication, leadership, strategy, discipline, and creativity. A versatile player survives more environments, and versatility creates freedom because the more skills you can develop, the more adaptable you become. And adaptability is one of the ultimate survival traits in both games and life. You have to adapt. I don't know how many people watch JJK out there, but be like Maharaga, right? Adapt to any situation, right? Number 6, you have to go on side quests. Why random experiences can change your life. Some of the most important moments in life will look insignificant at first, right? A random conversation, a random opportunity, a random mistake, a random trip, a random curiosity. Sandbox games understand something profound. Side quests often change the player more than the main story. Real life works exactly the same way. Right? Many people become obsessed with optimization. Everything must be productive, everything must have immediate value, and everything must serve a clear objective. That's wrong because life is too complex for pure optimization. Some experiences reveal their meaning years later, right? Have you ever had a conversation with somebody and thought, yo, wait, this conversation I had popped up a month later or 2 months later, or sometimes even a year later, right? And now it's helping me in my daily life, right? You gotta start thinking of things like that, right? The book you randomly picked up changes your worldview. The hobby you almost ignored becomes your career. The person you nearly didn't talk to changes your entire future. This is why openness matters so much. Rigid people often miss hidden doors, right? You can't be too stubborn in life. Take upon every opportunity. Curious people, you find them everywhere. The greatest opportunities in life are rarely announced loudly. Sometimes they appear disguised as accidents, right? Number 7, inventory management, protecting your mind and energy. In sandbox video games, carrying too much useless junk slows you down. Real life is identical psychologically. Most people are mentally overloaded, right? Too much stimulation, too much comparison, too much outrage, too much distraction, too much noise. You must quiet your life, right? Quiet your life to figure out what you want. Their attention becomes fragmented, and attention is one of the most valuable resources in existence because your attention shapes your reality. Whatever consistently occupies your mind eventually influences your emotions, decisions, and identity. And this is why protecting your mental environment is crucial, right? Your social media feed, your conversations, your music, your environment, your relationships, your thought patterns all become psychological inputs. Modern life constantly fights for your attention because attention is profitable. Everywhere you go, you see adverts left, right. Click on a YouTube video, ad pops up, right? You go on Instagram, TikTok. No, it doesn't matter what social media, doesn't matter what you're doing, you'll see an ad. The only thing that doesn't have an ad in life, for the most part, is books, right? Books and conversations with regular people. Those are the things that don't have ads. So remember, your attention is profitable, right? But if you lose control of your attention, you slowly lose your control in life. Peace requires maintenance. Focus requires protection. Clarity requires boundaries. A powerful mind is rarely accidental, it is curated, right? You have to curate a powerful mind. Be intentional with what you do. Don't give your attention out to things that don't deserve it, right? Or is going to waste it. 8, unlocking new regions. Why discomfort expands your world. Every sandbox game locks powerful regions behind difficulty. Higher level zones require courage, and life operates in the exact same way. Most people stay psychologically trapped in familiar territory, right? Same habits, same fears, same routines, same social circles, because in reality, familiarity feels safe. But growth lives outside comfort. Major transformation begins with discomfort. This is with everything: lifting heavy weights, speaking publicly, starting a business, moving somewhere new, taking social risks, and confronting fear. The uncomfortable zone is often the expansion zone, and this is why courageous people experience more of life. And it's not because they fear less, it is because they move despite that fear. And fear is not always a stop sign. Sometimes fear becomes a doorway, right? Customato once said, he said something like, there's a difference between the hero and the coward, right? They both feel the same fears, same frustration, same everything, but it's what the coward doesn't do that makes him a coward, and it's what the hero does that makes him a hero, right? Because despite anything, they both feel the same, but their action towards that feeling is different. The hero moves, right? He moves into action, but the coward stays. He stays complacent. He stays still. He doesn't want to move towards the danger or towards the fear. He runs away from it. However, the hero goes towards it, right? So it's all about making action when inaction was the familiar thing to you your entire life, right? Got to change up your life. Got to change up the way you do things. Number 9, building your base and creating systems that support you. Eventually, sandbox players stop surviving randomly. They build infrastructure, bases, farms, and automation systems. Real life eventually demands the same shift because many people rely entirely on motivation, and that is dangerous because motivation fluctuates constantly, right? Systems create consistency. A strong routine is a system. A clean environment is a system. Fitness habits are systems. Financial discipline is a system. The goal is reducing unnecessary chaos because chaos drains cognitive energy. When your life lacks structure, every task requires willpower. And when every task requires willpower, your brain is slowly losing efficiency. Because whether you like it or not, you can't operate at 100% all the time, right? So you have to have structure, right? Give your brain some ease in life, right? Make it easier, optimize your life, optimize your brain, right? But when systems exist, progress becomes easier automatically. This is how disciplined people often appear effortless. It's not that they just know everything, they just have the proper systems in place that make their life easier, right? The environment carries them forward and they design their life intelligently. And last but not least, the end game philosophy, right? Number 10, becoming the architect of your reality. Eventually, every sandbox player realizes something profound. The point was never simply to win. The point was to experience, right? To explore, to evolve, to create, to struggle, to connect, and to transform. Most people spend their lives sleepwalking through infinite possibility, but some wake up and they realize that they can reinvent themselves, change direction, they can rewrite their story, and they can build a meaningful existence. And once you realize that, life stops feeling like a rigid system and it starts feeling like an open world filled with possibility. The sandbox was never the prison, it was the freedom. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys in the next one.